Aquinas' third way, is basically an attempt to logically answer this question: why do we have a universe that's full of things that come and go? A contingent universe. Why does it exist at all?
The starting point is something we can all see. Aquinas points out that things in our world are contingent. That just means they come into being and eventually they stop existing. So it's possible for them not to be. This is a really crucial distinction to keep in mind. From this observation about contingent beings, the argument then moves, through logic, to the conclusion that there must be a completely different kind of being, one that's self-sufficient and doesn't depend on anything else to exist. So how exactly does Aquinas get from that observation to his conclusion? Let's trace the 4 steps of his reasoning here. First, we observe contingency. Second, he argues that if everything were contingent, then logically, there must have been a time when nothing at all existed. I mean, if every single thing has the possibility of not existing, it's possible they could all go out of existence at the same time. Third, and this is a key principle, you can't get something from absolute nothing. So to explain why we have a universe full of contingent things right now, there has to be something that isn't contingent, a necessary being. For Aquinas, this necessary being is the ultimate foundation for all existence. It's the uncaused cause that everything else depends on. And he identifies this necessary being as what people generally understand by the word God. Now, this argument faces a very significant objection, and it targets that key move from the nature of the things inside the universe to the nature of the universe as a whole. The objection is based on what's known as the fallacy of composition. This is a well-known logical error that happens when someone wrongly assumes that if the parts of a thing have a certain quality, then the whole thing must have that same quality. This simple analogy really helps to illustrate the point. Every single brick in a wall is small, but it absolutely does not follow from this that the wall itself is small. So how does this apply to Aquinas' argument? Well, the objection is this. Just because every single part of the universe is contingent, it doesn't automatically follow that the universe as a whole is contingent. The argument seems to make a leap in logic here that might not be justified. As you can see from this table, both sides are on the same page with the initial observation. Individual things within the universe are contingent. The whole disagreement is about the inference. Aquinas argues that this contingency of the parts means the universe as a whole must also be contingent. The objection says, not so fast. That's an illegitimate move. You can't just apply a property of the parts to the whole. This is the core of the debate. Defenders of the argument, however, have a specific response to this charge. They argue that the inference isn't actually fallacious in this particular case. The defense starts by questioning the core assumption of the objection. Is it really true that every part-to-whole inference is a fallacy? They suggest that whether the inference is valid or not depends entirely on the property that's being transferred. Let's go back to that brick wall. Okay, it's true that the property of smallness doesn't transfer from the brick to the wall, but what about other properties? If every single brick in the wall is green, then it does logically follow that the wall is green. The defense's point is that some properties are transferable, and the inference is only a fallacy for those that aren't. And this brings us to the core of the reply. The claim is that contingency is a transferable property, like greenness, not a non-transferable one like smallness. The reasoning goes like this. If every single part that makes up the universe is dependent and could have failed to exist, then the whole that they compose, the universe itself, is also dependent and could have failed to exist. If this is right, then the inference is valid, and the universe as a whole really does require an explanation.